Airtime with Jordan. Is this mic on? The mic is live. Alright, we are ready to go. Foodie talk. Alright. On the radio, let's stop footing. Yes, this is AI. Keen to get started. Pump those ratings up high. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Airtime with Jordan. I'm your host Jordan Faso, and yeah, we're back. Haven't been back for a few weeks, so yeah, a few things to catch up on here off the top of the show. So a bit of news and somewhat controversial, or definitely controversial stuff that's happened, and then yeah, just some actual news in the footy world that I want to get to and talk about. A few things that I want to discuss before we go through the power rankings heading into the finals, and then give my sort of expectations and you know, actual tips for how I think the finals bracket is going to play out, and then yeah, also within those sections when I'm talking about each individual's teams in the power rankings, going to go through and just name a player to watch in the finals for each team. So someone who I think could go a long way in dictating how the teams perform and how their seasons end up going. So yeah, let's get into it. And yeah, really, I feel like this topic has been done to death a little bit with the Izak Rankine issue, but I still do think that it's worth bringing up again. I think that, you know, there's a lot of poor coverage on it. There was a lot of obviously I wouldn't say scandal. It was just absolute bullshit by the AFL and Adelaide in general. I think the way they operated in this situation, it was quite gross, I thought. And you know, as I said, it has been done to death. But I'm going to give my 2 cents on this issue. And I think if you're the AFL, they try and act like they have a zero tolerance policy on this issue, whilst you know also clearly showing they absolutely have some tolerance. It was just a wild journey to go on a couple of weeks ago, and you know, the organisation says that it stands with the members of the gay community, but it clearly doesn't, and that was pretty evident through the watching how this played out. Really, it was super evident that was not the case at all. They had previously set a precedent at 5 weeks for this sort of comment that was made. Clearly, Izak Rankine is absolutely in the wrong. There is no justifying what he did at all. And as I said, the precedent was set at 5 weeks. We've seen it as recently in the season as Will Powell getting 5 weeks for that. Jack Graham got 4 weeks but he was self-reported. So that was the difference there. He did self-report and got 4 weeks as a result. And Izak Rankine did not self-report. He tried to get away with it as best he could, which was a futile attempt to do that. I thought calling the player that you've, you know, thrown a homophobic slur at after the fact, after getting caught, doesn't really count in my book, because you know that's the bare minimum. You'd be a pretty shit bloke if you didn't act on that after getting caught. And yeah, he showed little to no remorse in that. He didn't make a public apology. He didn't reach out to anyone from his club, by all reports, who are from the gay community. You know, assuming they would even want that, I'm not sure. I'm not going to speak on behalf of those people, but yeah, and let alone he didn't even make it a public apology either. So there was nothing of the sort. Zero accountability from his end. Yeah. You know, the AFL and Adelaide spent 5 whole days deliberating what to do when the circumstances would suggest that, you know, he didn't help his case in any way, shape or form. So it should have just been a blanket 5-match ban. We should have been moved on. There shouldn't have been all this discourse about it, which was even more harmful to the whole situation, I thought. Then you got idiots that are trying to make it a political thing about oh, you should be able to say whatever the fuck you want, which, you know, no, you shouldn't. And yeah, it just should not have taken as long, nor should have resulted in the sentence that it did. And you know, even if you are one of those idiot bigots who doesn't think what he said was harmful, FYI, you're wrong. But I would hope that you could at least be able to tap into that brain of yours and comprehend that there's no way, based on the AFL's prior actions, that he should have gotten a reduced sentence. We have known it as a 5-week ban. You should agree with that. If you don't, well, that's on you. But regardless, it should have been a 5-week ban. I don't think there's a scenario where anyone understands how it got to 4 weeks. And you know, yeah, I just don't understand. We don't know what the mental health argument was. It seemed to be pretty convincing because, yeah, obviously got him down from 5 to 4 weeks based on that, and all of a sudden the AFL zero tolerance policy towards homophobia unravelled when they realised that Izak Rankine was going to be sad that he was going to miss the finals, and that's genuinely what happened here. Very disappointing that's what it came down to, and that they and Adelaide tried to victimise him as best they could, despite what Matthew Nick saying that he's absolutely not the victim. Well, you defending him all week and making all these claims absolutely paints that picture. So I don't know what your coach is talking about there. They try their best to victimise him and put his mental health before the mental health of the players and fans who have had to deal with this sort of homophobia throughout their lives. And, I really think that sort of exemplifies what the AFL is all about at this point in time, and that is that we care when it suits us. So that is the through line, I think, there. And I really do have a bit of a, call this a tinfoil hat moment or whatever you want to say, but I do genuinely believe that the AFL sort of leans into the fact that they're so incompetent and almost and hide, use it to their advantage, because people have come to expect inconsistencies with their messaging and logic in key decisions. So I do think that they sort of hide behind that incompetency at times and play into it because they're incapable of making any sort of consistent decision on multiple things, and this should have just been an easy blanket decision on their behalf. Who gives a fuck if he's playing finals or not? It's he made the mistake. He fucked up. I don't really understand why finals have anything to do with it. And then to take the piss even more, Izak Rankine ends up leaving the country for a European holiday. So he uses a homophobic slur, takes little to no accountability, receives a reduced punishment for that, and just when we thought he would be, inconsolable for 4 weeks because he's missing footy due to a mental health reason, and that he got it reduced from 5 to 4, we thought he was going to be, inconsolable for that time, because he's so heartbroken about missing finals. He manages to jump on Webjet, score a special to Rome or wherever he ended up going, and just so he can go eat pizza and be out of shape if he is lucky enough to return. So well done AFL, you managed to appease absolutely nobody and stand up for nobody in the process. So that's seriously outdoing themselves yet again. And that's sort of, I'm not going to harp on it for too long, but if you want some clearer and more articulate words on the issue, then Marnie Vinal wrote about it on the ABC. Really good follow on for all things AFL, AFLW, things like that on Twitter as well. But her article titled "Izak Rankine's AFL ban pales in comparison to the widespread impact of homophobia on the community" is a good read, and much more articulate than I can be in a segment here. So just wanted to raise that one off the top of the show. I think it deserves a little bit more attention there, and that's where I'll leave that, and we'll get back into the actual footy now that I've sort of had my say on that issue. Again, don't think we need to beat it too much, but definitely worth bringing up again, because those inconsistencies and they just need to be addressed and highlighted, I think. Getting into the footy side of things, we had some news with Nasiah Malira signing a 2-year contract with the Saints worth about $4 million, it's expected to be. So just a bit of a game-shifting signing for the Saints. They were able to secure him for 2 more years, and I think it's a really good, fair deal for both parties. He's been playing at what I think is the best player in the league level over the back half of the season at least, and he gets $4 million guaranteed money and cashes in on one of the best runs of form we've seen at AFL level. So good on him for cashing in on that. Could have obviously taken more years elsewhere, and I'm sure the Saints would have offered him a longer contract too. But I think 2 years is good for him to reassess where he is at that point in time, and we'll reassess where the Saints are as well. And for the Saints, they can now continue to build out their team with him in mind and not have to make some sort of drastic pivot, which I think would have set them back quite a bit. But they've got 2 years now to prove it, and it's obviously not as long as they might like. But if in 2 years they're not good enough to be competing and good enough to convince Nasiah that he should stay, then they don't deserve to have him anyway. So I think that it's a good situation for both parties here to sort of prove it and see how they go together for the next 2 years. And just in general, in the Saints, I'm sort of loving the aggressiveness from them. They're into Tom DeConing, obviously, Jack Subani as well, recently reported. Liam Ryan has been linked there, and Leka Lear also. So there's 4 guys that potentially coming into the club in the off season, and that they have somehow overnight become a bit of a destination club, and obviously that has a lot to do with Nas, but Ross Lyon as well doing a good job there, and I think their run of form as well definitely helped in securing Nasiah's signature, but also like getting some of these players to really look at the St Kilda and be like, maybe I do want to come play with the Nasiah, Rankine, Malera, because that might be fun. Ross Lyon is a revered coach around the league, or respected coach around the league, so that might still have some pull. But all of a sudden, I do think it sets them up pretty perfectly for next year. Like these signings now, and you got Max King hopefully returning next year. Their list is looking like pretty strong, especially if they keep everyone. Like there's rumours about Ryan Marshall leaving. I hope he doesn't, because him and Tom De Koning in the ruck is that sort of ruck duo where both of them are capable to play forward, and you haven't got like diminishing returns on them. I'm looking at you, Freo, necessarily, but I genuinely think if the Saints are able to stay healthy next year and get let's say they get two of Liam Ryan, Jack Silvani and Lee Collier, then you add that plus some internal development from guys like Darcy Wilson to get back to his form. He kicked 5 in his last game of the year, so not going to expect that every week, but they bring those guys back. Mitch Owens missed the last few weeks of footy as well, so that, and then the big one is obviously Max King. So if you're getting Tom De Koning, King, and let's say 2 of Liam Ryan, Jack Silvani, Alier, plus the internal development from guys, then I do think there's a chance they're in the top 4 next year, and that is that might sound crazy, but that's all that's like 5 or 6 guys they're getting into their team that I think are really good players, and like I've been pretty high on the Saints in terms of their top 4 or 5 players over the last few years, and obviously Nasiah is the number 1 now, but like Jack Sinclair as well, elite player, Cal Wilkie, very stiff not to make the All-Australian squad, let alone the actual team. I think he's probably deserving of the team, and then that's a separate discussion. But they have some really, really good high-end talent, some interesting young pieces with Nasiah being the leading that charge, but Windhager, if he's able to stay, Alex Haru as well. So things are looking very good at St Kilda at the moment, I think, and a lot to play out still, obviously, over the off-season, but it's looking very strong after that Nasiah signing. Charlie Curnow, bit of hype around him at the moment, obviously. A few weeks ago, was interviewed and said he's definitely going to be at Carlton next year, and then, the reports come out after his exit meeting that he mentioned to Carlton that he might be interested in a trade, and that he sort of soft requested a trade, and I don't know. To me, it seems a bit weird where you're acting so like strongly to the media that you don't want to trade. Like it's a bit of a he wants his cake and be able to eat it too. Like he wants to preserve this good guy image as though he's not leaving the club when the club sort of like objectively, or not objectively, but like it seems like the club needs him, and then he's like just sort of trying to get out behind closed doors, but acting so strongly to the media that he doesn't want out. I don't know. It's a weird way to go about it. Just don't say anything. Like, just say, like, nah, not all good. I'm not answering questions about that right now or whatever. Like, but that sort of stuff gets looked over all the time. So you don't have to be so aggressive in your language and saying, no, I'm definitely going to be here this year. And, I don't know. Him and his agent are being very incredibly transparent with this, because like that leak didn't come from Carlton. It clearly came from you and your agent. So a bit of a weird one there. And but on that, the possibility of actually trading him, I have been banging this drum for a while that I think that is a better option for the Blues to potentially trade him if you are going to get rid of one of him or Harry Mackay, because in a perfect world you can get an absolute haul for Charlie Curnow, and I think that this club, maybe they're trying to drum up a bit of a bidding war. They're trying to say like, no, he's not getting traded, which is the right thing to do if you're Carlton. Say he's not going, so someone has to pry him out of there and create a bit of a bidding war between the Swans and Gold Coast. If the Gold Coast get absolutely thumped in the final, then they might get desperate and throw a few players at Curnow, for example. So there's definitely something there. And I would be seriously considering that if I were Carlton, because I also just don't think that he's as good as advertised anymore. And if you are able to get a decent haul for him, then that's probably the best thing for the club. Like, they need depth. Like, they've got Harry Mackay, who has won a Coleman. Let's not forget. Like, let's not act like he's the worst player in the world. He's kicked 7 in a game as recently as 3 or 4 weeks ago. So that, plus the fact that Harry also can play second ruck, that's a valuable positional value that he provides. I think that there's a lot that is stacking in favour of Harry Mackay here, and keeping him over Curnow if Curnow does in fact want out. But the issue is with the Swans specifically, who have been most closely linked to Charlie, is that they're probably not going to give up Goulden, Heaney or Warner, which if I was the Swans I definitely wouldn't do that either. They're all better than Charlie Curnow. They're more valuable than him in my opinion, and also their picks aren't going to be worth anything either. So if you're not getting one of those three and their picks are kind of shit, because if you're giving them Charlie Curnow, you're expecting something back, and if that's the picks, then them getting Curnow makes them better, and the picks are inversely affected by that. So I don't really know if there's a trade mechanic that works without one of those three in the deal for Carlton. I just don't think Sydney would do one of those three anyway. So there's a bit of a non-starter with the Swans. So if they're not the team, or if they're not willing to part with some of those players, then if I'm the Blues, I'm either just keeping Charlie in that case, or trying to drum up a bidding war for him, as there's always going to be teams in the market for a two-time Coleman medalist who is under contract for the foreseeable future. Under contract in theory, apparently, because of course he is requesting a trade despite that at the moment. So bit of a weird one by Charlie there, but he's entitled to request the trade, I guess. So that's fine. I just think that the Blues might be smart to get off him. His body also hasn't been the most reliable over time, so he's verging on 28 now, 29. So in my opinion, time to cash out, and the right time to do it. Alrighty, now let's get into the finals, power rankings, and we'll go through each team 1 to 8. And I will make a note that I did have, if I was to do just overall power rankings, I still wouldn't have Gold Coast in my top 8. I'd have them 9th and the Doggies in. But we're just doing 8 teams today because that's all that matters anymore. So just a disclaimer about the Suns. So, and a bit of a spoiler because I do have the mates heading into this. So anyway, we'll start at number 1, and I do have the Lions number 1. And I think that they've shown in the last few weeks that the injuries have not and will not sort of impact them as much as you may have expected. Look at Lachie Neale, 2-time Brownlow medalist, has been out, and that's we've just seen an increased role for Zach Bailey and Will Ashcroft as well, going through the middle more. And I just think that they just have so many players that are capable of winning a match for them as well. That they're also just as a collective, they're just winners now. They've been to 2 grand finals. They played finals for 7 or 8 years in a row now. They know how to win. I think they're going to be the hardest out in the finals if a team does get over them. So that's why I've got them number 1. They've got, they're not going to play a home final necessarily. Well, they're not in the first week anyway. So that's one thing that goes against them, I guess. But I'm a little bit. I'm just very bullish on them. And, Eric Hipwood is the only person they might miss structurally. And even then, I think they're going to survive because, Logan Morris obviously is the number 1 key forward now. So, that Hipwood role where he's getting higher up the ground and, providing contests and things like that can be more easily filled by someone of a Sam Day or a Henry Smith for them. So I think that, they're going to be very good front of the ball, in front of the ball, and behind the ball, Harris Andrews and Starcevic is back, and Darcy Wilmot is just playing unbelievable footy at the moment as well. They have really versatile defenders throughout there with Ryan Lester down back, so not very worried about them across any line really. And as I said, just so many match winners for them at this point. And Charlie Cameron as well found a bit of form against Hawthorn in the last round of the season. So, it could be dangerous come finals time, could Charlie. So, good time for him to have a little bit of a purple patch. And we'll see how he goes in the finals because, it has been a bit of a down year for Charlie. But, X Factor written all over him. And speaking of players, X Factor and players to watch, I'm going to do this for each team, as I said, but yeah, the player to watch for Brisbane is Jasper Fletcher. I think similar to Will Ashcroft last year, heading into the final series, he was just building and building really nicely, and I think that like his ability to be the most athletic player, or one of the most athletic players on the ground, have great skills. He's not afraid to take shot, like running shots from 50 and like defend as well. His ability to like shut down like an opposition small forward, but also be able to attack the other way is going to be very valuable for Brisbane. And if not him, it's going to be Darcy Wilmot as well. And I think those two do a really good job of sort of making up like sort of what they lack, or what Dane Zorko gives away defensively a bit. Like Zorko obviously has a great role to play with his ball use down there, but I think that these two just athletically really, really cover Brisbane's defence really well, I think, at the moment. And yeah, Jasper Fletcher really, really playing well and loving what I'm seeing from him. Absolute freak. Coming in second on my power rankings are the Cats. And, people are speaking about their soft draw coming into finals. And they might be right to some degree. Like, it has been a very soft draw. But I think that they're just that good that it won't matter. And like, if this was, Adelaide or Freo, like, coming into your first or second final series as a core, then yeah, maybe I'll be a bit more worried about the soft draw. But this is Geelong; they're a seasoned team. That they've not only have they got the coach with the most finals experience in finals right now, they also have so many veterans on this team that know what it takes to win a grand final and play like deep into a final series. So, not going to say I'm very worried about that soft draw sort of argument. They might not have preferred that, but I think that they're good enough and experienced enough to deal with that, I think. And the one thing that I would be a little bit worried about is if Tom Stewart can't make it through the final series. I think that they probably drop a few spots on my board. He's been dealing with his knee issue for the best part of a year now, and I just until then I can't really put anyone else above them. They're just really, really complete across the ground at the moment, and Shannon Neal like coming to the forefront as well, like being very, very good for the back half of the year. Through the middle of the ground, super, super solid. Like Tom Atkins is just built for finals. Bally Smith going to be very interesting to see how he performs in the finals. He's had an amazing year as well. But those Atkins, Smith, and Max Holmes in the middle with Patrick Dangerfield likely to feature a bit more in the middle in the finals as well is going to be a very, very tough ask for teams. And they're just so good across the ground, and they're peaking not peaking at the right time because it's hard to say how they've gone with that schedule, but they're in great form at the moment, and they also have a bloke by the name of Jeremy Cameron who's pretty handy as well up forward. So I've named a few players, and they're not necessarily the player to watch. I've got the one for Geelong that I've singled out is Jack Martin, because he. When they first signed him, I was like, he's never going to get on the paddock. Like he hasn't been really like, behaviourally based, where he hasn't reached his ability, which is something what Geelong like to do. Obviously, they've done that with Tyson Stengel in the past as well. But Jack Martin's body he would never get it right. It seemed like, and they've definitely been a bit of a slow burn with him. But he's coming on of late, and Jack Martin at his best is absolutely an X Factor player, and if he's able to kick 2 or 3 goals a game in the finals to complement what Jeremy Cameron's going to be able to do, especially if they're going to play Dangerfield further up the ground, then he's going to be a very dangerous player for the Cats, who already have such a talented forward line as well. With Ollie Dempsey not forward, but like he sneaks down there, kicks goals. Jeremy Cameron, Shannon Neal. Grime Myers, of course, and Brad Close, like just a really strong mid forward group that they've got down there. So Jack Martin being able to add him to that as a bit of a wild card is I would say pretty exciting for Cats fans, and I'd be watching him for if I was other teams and making sure he's not gonna. I guess you'd rather him than Jeremy Cameron get on top of you, but it's just another really talented player that the other teams have to worry about. Alright, Adelaide. So, you may be asking, the number 1 home and away team are third on my board. How has that happened? Well, I think they've had a great year. They've been super strong and competitive and fun to watch. They've been one of my favourite teams to watch all year. But I just don't think that they're necessarily the clubhouse leader that some might think for a normal minor premier. they didn't really run away from the pack. It was a very competitive top 8 this year. Everyone thought Collingwood was the best team for 17 rounds, and look how that turned out. Obviously for Collingwood fans. Sorry, I'm going to get to you in a minute, but yeah, on the Crows front, like they have a few things going against them in my book. Like that they've competed against every team this year, so the actual team aspect, like I don't think that they could have done much more to prove or to put in for me to have no doubt about them. But yeah, the thing is that they don't play at the G very often, so I don't think they're going to be very capable of beating teams like Collingwood, Geelong, Hawthorn, or even Brizzy for that matter, with the amount of finals experience that they've had at the G, especially the last 2 grand finals. Like I wouldn't favour them in any of those 4 games if it was held at the G. So I think that they're already sort of like, it is just a matter of the fixturing and like the luck of being a Melbourne team in that way, where if there's 4 teams that I don't think that Adelaide are going to be capable of beating, even if it is just grand final day, let alone if they end up having to play 2 games at the G or something like that, if they lose in the first round, then yeah, I just don't think that they're going to be able to win the trophy ultimately, and that's before you even talk about the fact that they're missing their best or second best player, however you look at it, with Izak Rankine obviously missing. So if they've got that going against them, they've got the fact that there's 4 teams that play the G a lot better than they would, and you've got to win it at the G. So there's that, plus Izak Rankine's perceived replacement in Josh Shelley hasn't played for weeks either. So there's a few things going against them here, and it's been a really, really good season, but I'm not like fully out on them or anything. They're like still 3rd in my power rankings going into the finals, but I do find it hard when there's half of the top 8, 4 teams in the top 8 that I just don't think they're going to beat at the G. So maybe they get lucky in the draw and go Adelaide Oval, and then play one of Freo, GWS, or Gold Coast at the G. I don't remember if that's actually possible for any one of those teams or not, but yeah, I think that for those reasons, I'm going to put them 3rd and have 2 teams above them. But their player to watch is Max Michelini for me. He's been out for a little bit with his injury, but he's slated to return for week 1 in the finals, and I think that the Crow defense has been very, very strong all year. Hasn't really lost a beat since he's been out, and he probably heading into the year, you'd think he's probably their best defender. I think that's probably gone to Josh Worrell at this point, obviously, who was, again, another unlucky person to miss out on the Australian team. I talked about Cal Wilkie before, but he was Josh Worrell might have even been more unlucky. And I'm a Hawks fan, so happy for Josh Battle, but I think that Josh Worrell was very stiff not to make it. Anyway, Max Michelini, X-Factor player to watch. I think that with Izak Rankine going out, I think that there's a chance that Max Michelini might actually play up forward. We saw it. I can't remember who it was against. There was a game of like maybe 8 weeks ago or something like that, where he ended up playing a defensive forward role, and looked pretty solid in that as well. And I think with Daniel Curtin playing higher up the ground now as well, like they were playing Curtin forward, and it was essentially like 4 talls, and Michelini's about 190 centimetres himself, so I think he adds a bit more size to that forward line, which they seemed to like earlier in the year as well, so without losing any pressure and things like that. So I think that he's someone that could play a bit of a different role and throw a bit of a spanner in the works for a team come finals time, and him being able to play in the forward line more would also allow Rochelle to play a bit more in the middle, without Rankine being there to play that sort of role. So yeah, something to watch for me, I think, is Max Michelini and the role that he will play in his return. Alright, number 4, I have my Hawks, and sign me up for them. It might be a little bit of copium, but I do think there is a pathway here for the Hawks to make some noise in September. I don't necessarily think that this is their year, but there is a pathway, and their defense has been very good all year, which definitely helps in finals. And I think the fact that they're coming up against GWS as well, who are a bit underdone with injuries, helps them too. Because if they are able to get through GWS at NG Stadium on Saturday, the first week of finals, then there's a chance that they may not leave Melbourne for the rest of the final series, which again, very much a Victorian dominated sport, very aware of that, but that's the reality. And I don't think it is their year, as I said, but especially without a midfield that compete, they've probably got the worst midfield out of the top 8 teams, so it's going to be hard to win with that. But the rest of the team does look in really good shape. The forward line's playing pretty well together at the moment, obviously led by Jack Gunston and Ginnivan. But yeah, then the back line looks very, very solid. It's been one of the best all year, as I said. So yeah, they've got that part of the ground, those parts of the ground really good. And Lloyd Meek's been very good in the ruck and competitive. But yeah, just not super sold on the midfield, which is the main worry for me. And as for a player to watch, I've got Connor McDonald. It's been a bit of a down year for him, but he's one of these players that has shown a bit of X factor in the past. His ability to have 25 plus touches, kick a couple goals. So especially with Hawthorn have been trying to get some different looks in their midfield without Will Day. We've seen Dylan Moore go through there a lot more. We've seen Nick Watson do it as well. But I do think Connor McDonald has that ability to also go through there, but I would probably look for him to be more of that small forward or mid-sized forward heading into the finals, and let the other two sort of spend more time in the midfield, which is why I've sort of got him as the X factor, because it's time for him to stand up, and with those guys spending more time up the field, he really needs to use the ball and hit the scoreboard well. So I think that there's a chance that Connor McDonald could be that guy for Hawthorn heading into the final series. Coming in at a number 5 in my rankings is Freo, and their run home has been super impressive. They've had a bit stronger of a run. They were definitely stronger at run home compared to the Cats. In terms of strength, they've had a couple losses along the way, namely the one to Brizzy a few weeks ago, but that's not the worst loss when I think that Brizzy are the best team in the league. So I think that statement they made against the Bulldogs, though, is the one that you look at. Like that's a game where I did not think Freo had much of a chance, and they just absolutely ran right over the Doggies, and the Doggies came home late, but it wasn't as close as it would have suggested. But yeah, I just like the size of the players that they have. Like they have really made a really concerted effort to have like really top end size in their key position players. Like obviously Alex Pearce is huge, Brendan Cox is huge. Josh Tracy is just one of my favourite players to watch in the league. He's, again, massive. They all just put pressure on, though, as well. Like, they make up for the lack of pressure that Sean Darcy provides, I guess. But the intensity and pressure that those big players provide and the contest that they provide is going to be very important come finals time, I think. Like, those guys don't really seem to take a backward step, which you want from your key position players. And I do think that the guys that have that real size are not only just like quite mobile as well, but they're accompanied at ground level by a lot of speed that the Dockers half forwards have, and you got Sam Swiskowski, who's just lightning quick. They got Murphy Reid, of course, as well, Michael Frederick, Shea Bolton. So they have a lot of like clean players as well at ground level with their speed. Which makes the Dockers look even faster when they're up and about. So I just I like the mix of players they have at the moment. The worry I do have is their midfield and whether, Sarong and Brayshaw are big enough mids to deal with the heat of finals and not get overpowered in the centre of the ground. I think, they're going to have a chance with the two rucks giving them good service all game, but I also have seen a lot of times where Sarong and Brayshaw go missing, and then there's no chance for Freo if those two don't show up. And yeah, that's a bit of a concern for me, and I might even have them a bit low. Actually, I am going to put them above the Hawks. I think I'll switch these two. I'm going to put the Hawks 5th and Freo 4th in the power rankings, because I'm just as I'm talking through it, I do think that Sarong and Brayshaw are good enough, but that is a bit of a worry for me. But overall, I do really like the makeup of this team, and excited to see what they can do. I think for me, the player to watch for Freo is Murphy Reid. He is the rising star. I don't think that it should be particularly close. Everyone talks about Curtin and Levi Ashcroft, but Murphy Reid has been so good and so important to a winning team all year, and for the whole year. Like Curtin and Levi have been contributors too, but Murphy Reid has been a significant part of this Dockers team all year. He just is one of the leaders in goal assists in the competition, and that's for like a first year player. And it just feels like every time his guy goes near the ball, a scoring opportunity opens up, and he's already one of the smartest players I've seen enter the AFL, and has like low-key has some speed as well. Like, you sort of look at him and you think he's going to be a bit of a Jack Ginnivan type of player, but in terms of his athletic abilities, but he has like serious speed, I think, and he really suits that Freo forward line, and is probably the best small forward right now, I would say. So yeah, I think that's a high praise for him, and I'm very excited to see what he can do in a final series. So that's why I have Freo at 4 now, not 5. I've got the Hawks at 5, so let that be known. Collingwood, that's who I've got at 6 at the moment, and I think that the next 3 teams are very unlikely to win the flag, and I do have the Pies above GWS and Gold Coast. That's the remaining 2 teams, and I'll get into those teams in a second. But yeah, I don't think either of any of these 3 teams can win it. The only thing that I would see the Pies maybe being able to draw on is the fact that they're going to play potentially at the G after Adelaide Oval, and they have the experience of playing at Adelaide Oval from a few weeks ago. So maybe if they can get some more games at the G, then they're a chance. But yeah, I think that unfortunately for Pies fans, they're done, and I sort of called that a few weeks ago. I just didn't like the shape of the team and where it was tracking. So yeah, there's just so many questions surrounding this team, and I think the fact that they cannot get Jeremy Howe on the paddock has been equal parts frustrating and worrisome. Due to the fact that they're relying on a 35-year-old for the defensive structure to this degree, and it's a bit you don't want to be in that position as a club, I don't think, coming into finals. And speaking of that, they also definitely rely on Pendlebury to fill a lot of gaps out on the field. He's still he is the smartest player in the AFL. I have no doubt he's still smart enough to make up for his lack of physical tools at this point in his career. He's not bad. He's still super balanced and clean and everything. That's all gets him by, but I'm interested to see whether he's going to be capable of doing that at in a finals game when the pressure is all on him. Like, there's been a few times this year where you've seen it and been like, oh, he looks like an old man at times, like in terms of getting caught, which he never used to do. So it's starting to creep into it, but he's still been one of their best players all year. I don't want to sound like I'm knocking Scott Pendlebury, but I'm just saying that, like, the fact that they've relied on him to the level they have this year, and we haven't even gotten to like the physical test of finals part is a little bit worrying for me, where I think that he might get found out, and if he can't sort of contribute at that level, then yeah, it's going to be a worry. But just the midfield in general, outside of Nick Dacos, has been really, really disappointing. I think they had that little purple patch when Ned Long looked like he was going to be the big mid, and Jordan McGoey's had a horrible year with injury and trying to find form, so they just haven't had like a big body to sort of help support Nick Dacos there, and Jack Crisp maybe could be that guy a bit more if they lean into it, but they're not able to play like they're not able to play Long and Tom Mitchell in the same team either, who are probably their 2 best at like getting contested possessions, but yeah, they can't play those 2 together, plus Pendlebury as well. So they're sort of stuck in between a rock and a hard place, this team at the moment, and the forwards have been in incredibly poor form as well lately. Apart from Mychek, who I do think that never stops trying. I really like watching Brody Mychek play, but I think Darcy Cameron's drop off in form too has definitely coincided with this team falling off as well, and seems like he hasn't had as much impact behind the ball as he had earlier in the year. Like, there was made a very concerted effort to drop him back and let him take intercept marks and stuff, but I just don't think that's been quite as effective as the year's gone on for whatever reason. I'm not going to pretend like I know what that is, but just anecdotally, I just don't feel Darcy Cameron in during games as much anymore, compared to the start of the year at least. And yeah, there's just a lot of things adding up against the Pies at the moment, in my opinion. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with them. In regards to their players to watch, though, I do have one player that I'm very keen to see how he goes, is Dan Houston. And he missed Port Adelaide's final run last year with that bump on Izak Rankine, and he's had a disappointing season this year, from especially accounting for what Collingwood paid to get him, and the fact that I think Joe Richards has had a better year than Dan Houston is pretty scary for Collingwood in that transaction alone. But yeah, I hopefully he can turn around in September, because the best version of Dan Houston would be so suited to play finals footy. He's tough, skilled, and smart. So let's see if he can break out as a Pies player in September, because he's sort of been sort of been flirting with it a bit this year. Like, has had moments, but he's also had moments where he's been the worst player on the ground. So yeah, it's been a bit of a duality of Dan Houston, and I'm hoping for his sake and Pies fans' sake that he is able to turn it around in the finals. Number 7, we have the Giants, as I said, and in general, I'm one of the higher people on the Giants. I love their team. They're probably my favourite interstate team, so I generally will probably overrate them a bit, and if they're at full strength, I might have even had them as high as second heading into the finals, but I just think that the reality of the timing of who and how many players they're bringing back into this team potentially in the week 1 of the finals might go against them. They're bringing back Jesse Hogan, Stringer, Josh Kelly, Jack Buckley, and Brent Daniels all at once potentially. So if they end up bringing in those 5 guys all at once, then there's a chance that it stays healthy, that they stay healthy, and it all clicks right away. But most likely that 1 or 2 or 3 of them are going to be underdone, and Jesse Hogan's had issues all year, and Jack Stringer's never been the epitome of health, and same as Josh Kelly. Like, he always seems to have some sort of soft tissue injury. So and Brent Daniels has barely played this year. So I think that to rely on those 5 to get you over the line and make a run deep into finals is highly unlikely, especially when you don't have the double chance as well. So yeah, I'm sort of ruling them out a bit, with the acknowledgement that if healthy, they do have one of the best lists in the league, and have a genuine chance if healthy. But yeah, that being said, I don't know how I feel about counting them out, especially when they have a guy named Toby Green up front for them, so who is the ultimate finals player to me anyway. So yeah, going to be I might eat my words, especially if they beat my Hawks in the first week of the finals, but we'll see. As for their player to watch, Joe Fonte, I really I do like what he brings to the table, and he's just a freak athlete. But I really hope that he isn't one of the players to miss out because of the returnees in the first week. And he is building nicely, I think, as a player. But I really think that with a bit more consistent exposure to top level footy in the AFL, that he has a chance to break out, and especially he's one of those guys who could break out in a finals series, I think, and become a bit more of a permanent fixture of the team. And it feels like he is one of those guys who's good enough to play every week, but just gets squeezed out with the seniority of the team. And I think that his ability, his defensive pedigree, plays generally as a shutdown player of halfback, but likes to show off his athletic traits of running with the ball and contesting the ball in the air. I do think he has the ability to play a few different roles, potentially, if they get injured or something like that, he could play as a tagging mid or as a defensive forward, or just in his general sort of rebounding defender role. So I think he's one of those players who you want in your team in finals, because they're unpredictable. You don't know what you might need from quarter to quarter even. So a guy like this who is super athletic and can play in my eyes can play a multitude of roles is could be pretty impressive, I think, and pretty helpful in come finals time. So hopefully Joe Fonte gets a game and can prove that. Alrighty, so the last team I have are the Gold Coast Suns. They were the last team to qualify for the finals as well. So and a big part of that was their that loss to Port Adelaide, and I think they definitely showed some signs of immaturity and reason for concern over how they're going to perform in the finals. And it's sort of why I think they're going to be a non-factor in this final series as well. They're going away from home, and it all starts in the middle for the Suns, as we know, with Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson and Tuke Miller. So when those 3 are up and about, they look great, but I do think that they're going to face similar challenges with Sarong and Brayshaw as they did with Butters and Rosé, who are really, really clean players and quite quick as well, especially Sarong around the stoppages. His shiftiness might be a bit too much for Matt Rowell to combat. I think Matt Rowell especially might struggle in this regard with those two. He's not the fastest guy, and his I think he's just going to get a little bit exposed, especially by Sarong, the same way that Butters and Rosie were able to expose him and Anderson a few weeks ago. And they're not going to have the ruck dominance either. That Freo are going to have the two-headed monster of Dogger, Luke Jackson, and Sean Darcy. So I think that Witsy's probably not going to give them as good a service as they're probably used to, and the fact that they're away from home, they're not going to get that great a service, and they'll be on the back foot. I think that they're going to be hard pressed in the middle to dominate, which I think they're going to need to win the game, especially with the home advantage of being at Optus Stadium for Freo. And also the size of Freya's backline, I think, is just going to, if Alex Pearce 2 weeks ago, whenever was able to absolutely shut down Sam Darcy, I think he's going to be able to comfortably deal with Ben King as well. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to have a super clear avenue to goal either. And I think as well, like the run-off half-back that they so rely on with Dan Rioli and John Noble is really going to be put to the test against the pressure that the Dockers forwards provide. The amount of times you see Sam Switkowski or Michael Frederick just chase people down. I think that those two are going to have a bit of strife coming off halfback as well. So I think I can't see the combination of the schematic battle against Freo that they're going to provide. I think Freo match up really well with the Suns, and that combined with their lack of experience in the finals is it's probably why I'm not really counting Gold Coast as much of a contender here at all, really. And their player that I want to watch for Gold Coast is Will Powell, and it's a bit of a similar pick to Dan Houston. I think that he's absolutely built for September footy in the same way, where he's he's a tough player, he's smart, he's skilled, and he's a lockdown defender 1-on-1. So I think that he probably goes to Murphy Reid in this first game as well. So give him a bit of a shutdown role there, and the other Gold Coast defenders as halfbackers, Rioli and John Noble want to play those more offensive roles, so they're probably going to head to the more defensive-minded forwards of Sukowski and Frederick. So I think that Will Powell's got his hands full with Murphy Reid obviously there, so it's going to be an interesting battle between those two if that eventuates. And Will Power is just a very, very good player, and I don't know how many people of Victorian media are going to be watching Freo versus Gold Coast, but they should be, because I think this guy is going to have an absolute blunder, and if Gold Coast are to win, I think that he's going to have a big role to play in that. So, with those power rankings all said and done, let's have a look at the actual tips heading into the finals. So, we've got the first qualifying final of Adelaide and Collingwood. I've got Adelaide winning that one and going through to the prelim, which will be held at Adelaide Oval. The first elimination final, I have the Hawks beating the Giants. Second elimination final, I have the Dockers beating the Suns. And then the second qualifying final, I have the Lions beating the Cats. So that's Adelaide winning, Hawthorn winning, Freo winning, and Brisbane winning in the first round. The second round, that would mean that Collingwood versus Hawthorn and Geelong versus Freo. I have the Hawks and Geelong winning those matches respectively. So Collingwood and Freo I see losing in the second round. Prelims, I have Adelaide versus Geelong, which I have Geelong winning at Adelaide Oval. And then Brizzy versus Hawthorn, I have Brizzy winning at the Gabba, as we saw they did that pretty comfortably against the Hawks a couple of weeks ago. So I think we're set for a Geelong Brizzy grand final, and as for who wins, I'm going to give it to the Lions. I think they'll be too good. So consistent with my power rankings there, guys. So hopefully that is got you primed for finals a little bit. And we probably won't be doing stuff during the finals, but we'll see if anything happens. I'll jump on and start recording. But until that point, I'll chat to you next time I chat to you. Alrighty, thanks, guys.